Okay, let's see if we can push depth here with a lot of changes in scale and a couple other little tests that I'm going to try. Again, on the wood grain paper, just because it makes things go by so much faster in terms of investigating certain types of kind of techniques and media surface compatibility. Okay, so let's get a little bit of a foundation established here. The snowy brook. All right, so I'm going to be using both the ArtFoamies and the rubber stamp versions of my birch trees. And I'm using the Moonlight Night Total Eclipse Black Hybrid Black ink. You can use your StazOn, Brilliance inks. I can't remember if I used my VersaFine Clair on here. I think I did, but I don't know. I think I didn't re-ink my pad or something like that, so it came out a little bit lighter. Test out your different inks on this paper to see if it's compatible. Dye-based inks tend to stamp out a little bit light, but I don't know, you might try it. Like a Memories Black is a very dense, thick black dye-based ink, so that might work out just fine on here. But this wood grain paper is a printed, pattern on there, so it's not like it's going to be a very absorbent, like a cardstock or something of that sort. It's a little bit porous probably, but somewhat sealed off. So in other words, what I'm getting at is sometimes the thicker styles of inks work a little bit better, or maybe more specifically, the surface-oriented inks, like a pigment ink or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to try a couple different things on this paper. I want to try to do some overlap without having to mask out these birch trees. Now, these birch trees are supposed to be white, of course, so stamping something behind your foreground ones, or, I don't know, whatever, midground ones with more trees in the background, you would usually have to mask them off to stamp out more trees behind them, because they'll show right through the front trees, okay? But masking off is, it's kind of a hassle to do something like that. If you have something already cut out and you can just lay down a strip there and just reuse it over and over again, that won't be too bad. But without doing something like that, let's see if we can just get away with doing some overlap and then utilizing some of our white pastel pencil just to recolor some of those foregrounds back in. I'll show you what I mean when we get to that. Okay, so these are the ArtFoamies versions. Of course, this is a full-page piece of paper, 8.5 by 11. But these foamies really cover a lot of ground. You can do the same composition, but just do it on a half-page piece or something like that, or a quick version on a quarter-page piece using partial foamies, or just use the smaller rubber stamp versions of the stamps on here in a similar type of composition. Okay, so there's our large ones. You can see how much room they take up, quite a bit. And then let's push some depth. So I can go for these. Here's the rubber stamp versions. You can see the scale of this one compared to that one. But let's see here. I also have this version right here. Okay. I think I'll go for this one right here. The ArtFoamy. No, this one's the smaller birch. And I'm going to overlap this one right here. And we'll have some overhanging tree limbs in here as well. So let's see how this works. But I do want some background trees in this forest. And I don't really feel like masking So, okay, let's see. Stamping something up higher usually will represent something farther in the distance. And it's where the base of this meets. I mean, you know, this part of the tree isn't supposed to be closer than this tree right here, you know, or this part of the tree up there, but it's where the base is that would be representative of how distant something is. Okay, now let's go for, should I go for these vertical ones or those kind of more bent ones? Let's try these ones right here, which is the same one as this, and I'll put that in the background. I don't know if I want to overlap by that much, but just kind of working through this in my head. Let's do this. Let's ink up this one right here. Okay. I want it pretty dense in here. I'll do that same one again, just because I've already inked it up and I don't feel like cleaning it off. I was going to use this one over here, but let's just use the same one. And let's throw it in between here. Sometimes when I see these birch forests, they are fairly dense with trunks like this. And then we'll ink up the whole stamp here. And it's a smaller version of this one, so I'll stamp this one up even higher to represent something, again, farther back in the distance, and it's good to have the tops of these running off the top of the paper anyway. So let's go about right here. Okay, so see that where that's overlapping into that. I don't think that's going to pose kind of a visual problem, but we'll see. Okay. All right, now I wanted to try something here with some different colored foliage in here. But I'm looking right here. One of the things I did yesterday was I did this kind of sun kind of peering out from within the background. I think I'm going to do that. I found my pad here, this Moonlight Duo one. I'm going to go with some of the white in here. The Duo means there's white and, you know, whatever colors in there. And I'm going to use both. Yesterday I just went for this pastel yellow Hero Arts pigment ink. But I think the combination of some of this will work. Now I'm taking some of this white and put it in here. That's what this pad's kind of made for. It's made for kind of this dual purpose, you know, of kind of mixing, you know, the colors together. Which seems strange to me, but, you know, in theory and in application, it's pretty cool because you get any version of this all the way to white, you know, by mixing the two. And it's a dedicated pad, so, you know, you just mix them together like that, and you get some of that yellow in there. Hey, you know, that's what it's for. So, all right, it's all about kind of this value range. Okay, so I went with white And then I went with some of that yellow, but it's like, I was looking at it, I thought, it needs a little bit more white over the top of the yellow. I'm kind of removing some of that yellow that's already been applied. But let's see how this works here. I just kind of need it to be somewhat apparent, after I lay that down. It might be a little bit too light, like that. Now let me try to go a little bit thicker. Now this isn't drying real fast, okay? It's drying very, very slow. In fact, it's still wet, so. Let me let that set up a little bit, and then I'll hit it again. It's like it practically invisible. Let me see, I saw it more in the yellow. Let's see how this works here. Okay, so that yellow is very visible. I don't know, I might have to hit it with a Brilliance ink. Or I'll let that set up more, and then I'll just go back to it. So I want to test out, I want to experiment with a few different things here. That one right there is not working out so far. We'll hit it with the light again. Okay, so let's see, down here, let's fill in this forest floor more. And let me think about, where did that ArtFoamies deer go? I've got a desk full of stuff here. Okay, so let's get to that in a bit. Okay, so I want to test out some foliage up here and see if it'll stamp out. Okay, so a little bit of an overhanging branch. Let me test this out with a green tone. And I think it might print out fairly light, okay? But let's see how it goes. This is a galactic green. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do something that would be representative of kind of fall colors maybe. I'll try to intersperse some of the yellow, but I don't know if it's gonna stamp out very well. We'll see. Now I want this one's very light, but that's what it's supposed to be because I want it to be kind of layered in the background. I'm putting some of that white on there like that. All right, so it looks like that. Let's hit it with some of this space moss. Kind of looks a little bit olive-y colored. Okay, good. We're building up a little bit of depth here with that. You can go kind of a little bit offset, or I'm bringing this a little bit lower like that. I didn't go for as many impressions as that, the first one, because I want the first impressions to show through still. Okay, now I don't think this is going to show through, or show in front of this darker green, but I want to see what this will look like. I do want to get some of these golden colors in there. That looks okay, like that. I wasn't quite sure if I'd use some of this sedge filler texture in there, but it really needs it, I think. You know, right throughout this area. I'll wipe off the edges a little bit. And just to give a little bit of a more graceful edge where this, you know, each impression overlaps each other. And I just go over my birch trees. I am getting some of this texture, of course, in the birch tree, in the bark, you know, the white bark, but I'm going to be coloring those birch trees anyways. So I'm not worried about, you know, a little bit of a very light texture going into them. Okay, so there we go, like that. Let's bring a little bit more defined texture in there with some of these little rocks. Defined in terms of them being kind of a little bit more solid than the very light grassy texture of the sedge. All right, I need to be careful here because all my papers underneath here are a little bit staggered. Okay, here we go. All right, let's go for a little bit of the ArtFoamies foreground here. ArtFoamies reads large. Maybe I'll go with both of them, actually. I'll go for a little bit of size depth. You know, that one really stamped out very, very lightly. I'll spend more time with the smaller version here in the foreground. I mean, this is the foreground, but it's like the closer foreground area. Okay. That's the larger one. This one's well, this one's called large, but compared to the ArtFoamies, it's It's a little smaller. Pressing and holding down a little bit longer. Just to allow that ink to transfer more. Okay, I see I'm making kind of that area a little bit denser. It kind of closes off the bottom portions of our scene a little bit more. And kind of anchors them down. Okay, so we're getting pretty close here to being done with our impressions at least. I think I need to go and address the sun again. Okay, I'm going to try something here. We're going to come in here with the Brilliance white instead. I need something that's going to be a little bit more solid and opaque. And I believe the Brilliance will provide that. Actually, let me use my other Brilliance pad. I don't like using my cotton ball on my impression Brilliance pad. So this is my cotton ball Brilliance pad. Okay, the Brilliance ink is a faster drying style of a pigment ink. It's water-based and again, fast drying. There's something in there that makes it a little bit more faster drying. So see how stark that is. And then what I'm going to do after that sets up and dries, and I'm going to go back in and color it with some, I'll put this over it again, and then we'll hit it with the white or the yellow ink to make it more of a sun. But let's allow that to set up a little bit first. And then let's go back in with the these leaves here, and let's hit it with the black. Okay, and then let's create a little bit more depth. Now, I wanted to do this first because I'm gonna have like one of these leaves kind of overlapping that moon or sun a little bit. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, let's have some of these coming in from the side too. It'll kind of close off the, the perimeter a little bit. Yeah, maybe that's all. I'll just go with that. Okay, now this wood grain paper it's a pretty dynamic paper. So I don't want to cover things up too much with it. Thinking about my little figure in here. This one's going to be a little bit too big, and I just did something like that. Do I go with the rider in here again? This rider right here, these trunks would be just way too big. So an animal is more appropriate in here. Let me pause and let me find my deer that I'll put in here. I changed my mind. We're going to put a little, kind of a dancing figure. I don't know if she's dancing. It kind of looks like she's dancing. A little woodland figure like that. Okay, I didn't plan to put her in here, so I might have some of this texturing showing right through her dress and everything like that, where it'd be a better idea if I stamped her first and used all that texturing and rock and everything like that around her. But let's see if we can get away with this after kind of thought. But she's kind of the right scale for this, though. And I think she'll look pretty cool in there if it works out okay. Holding it down a little bit longer, again, allowing the ink to transfer, especially on the subject matter focal point. Yeah, that's not too bad. I think she looks pretty good in there. Okay, now I'm being a little impatient here, and it would probably be a good idea to allow that white to dry a little bit more, but I think I am going to go in and color. And let's just use a little bit of heat setting anyway. This scenario would be cool for like a nighttime type of thing as well, but I want it to be daytime, so let's turn this more into a sun. And I'm going to transition it slightly. I'll go from a little bit more ink on the top to less ink on the bottom. And we'll just have more of that, you know, kind of white down there like that. Okay, so we need to match everything up. So we have our composition, but nothing kind of matches right now from a lighting shading perspective, okay? So this is going to be, this is going to be a little more complex just because of the sheer number of things, but I'll show you how to think about it in terms of a more kind of simple type of thought process here, okay? So we have our light source right here, and shade is going to be cast by a lot of our different trunks, okay? But first, let's do something really easy here. The trunks to the right of our light source are going to be a little bit more left side illuminated, okay? So on our trunks, now just kind of give a general type of shading scheme to these trees. Don't do it too dark either. Just kind of keep a light touch right here. You can see this tree is supposed to be behind this one, so this is where the shading, I think, should compensate for that. Or, make it so I didn't need to mask, in other words, okay? See these trees right now? I mean, I didn't do the whole thing, but just in general, they're reflecting the location of the light source, okay? Now on these ones right here, they're going to be left side shaded, okay? Because the right side illuminated with that sun coming from the right. Now again, I'm using a black colored pencil, but I'm not using it for black. I'm using it more for like a light gray, to medium, maybe slightly darker in some of these trunks. Okay, and this one right here is right next to the, or closest to our light source. Going for a little bit more shade. So see, just doing the trunks like that, we already have, you know, pretty good deal of kind of our lighting scheme within the piece without even kind of drawing in, you know, some additional shadows on the forest floor. But that's the part that gets really kind of a little bit more dynamic in terms of our lighting scheme. Okay, now this isn't supposed to be like concrete or something like that, super flat. It's an undulating, varied height terrain, okay? But just in general, these are your kind of, I go from the center here, but this is kind of the direction of your shadows. So on a tree like this, it's going something like down here. On this one right here, it's kind of going in this direction. Right over here, it's kind of more at this angle. I'm just kind of doing a general line coming from it, a central line. Now I don't really work, you know, like specifically this way, but I want to show you kind of where this strategy comes from. Okay, now see this one over here, the angle starts getting a lot more, you know, it's moving more towards kind of horizontal, right? Okay. And I'm just going right again from the trees right here. How far the shadow is cast, you know, it's kind of up to you. But I have it kind of, I don't have it going like all the way down here like it probably would if it was in real life. I kind of taper it a good amount. It's just a, you know, whatever artistic license here to kind of serve the picture a little bit more than, I don't know, maybe what reality would have it, okay? So do you see these kind of shadows coming out from there, all these different lines? And then what you do is I just kind of have it a little bit darker up top. Now again, I'm just kind of putting a light touched like this down. And then you just, and again, I want to kind of angle it so instead of just doing a shadow like this, I'm kind of having it like this and like this to represent kind of the contours of the terrain, okay? This grassy terrain, it's lumpy, okay? So you can do it like that if you want to. I mean, you can do a straight line too, like, you know, and just kind of soften it up a little bit. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so this one's kind of a little bit more of a softer look like this, okay? Like a shadow coming from it, and it's very straight. But then what you do is you just kind of break it up a little bit like this. You know, here and there within that space. Okay, so here's a straight one, then you just kind of break it up a little bit like this, you know, with some kind of horizontal line work. A little bit darker, you know, right next to the trunk, the thing that's casting the shadow, and then you taper it this way where it's, you know, lighter and lighter like that, so it dissipates, you know, the strength of the shadow breaks up, okay? You can add more shadows to your trunks here as I'm doing this, you know. I'll adjust accordingly. Now what I mean by that too is you say, well, what do you mean accordingly? You don't want the shadows, I don't think, to be darker than the object that's casting the shadow. I mean, you could, but see, if the shadow is this dark right here, then I'm darkening the trunks a little bit more. Like that at the base, okay? closer up in the canopy of leaves. I'm adding a little bit of a stronger shadow up here because, you know, we have all the leaves up there, so it stands to reason that the trunk might be a little bit darker. Okay, now she should be casting a shadow too, so her shadow would be coming out like kind of more like this way. But yeah, you don't have to, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect, or, you know, you kind of just want to get the gist of it, and then, you know, it'll make sense, you know, in terms of something visually reiterating the light source on there. It kind of looks strange now too, without any lighting, because we're just doing the shade. But you'll see where this all comes together, hopefully, when I add in the light touches into it. So this is just, again, we're just doing the shadows right now. See that? Shadows on the forest floor like that. Okay, now I'm going to add in some additional shading work in here, around the stream. You know, I'm darkening the things that are already kind of dark. So I'm seeing this little brook. I'm extending this little brook out this way. And these rocks are dark, so I'm kind of just adding a little more darkness to them. I'm trying to anchor her down a little bit, giving her a little bit of a stronger shadow right at her feet area. That. I think we are ready to start doing. Let's add in a little bit of a tone into here. I really like the look of the green tones yesterday. So in the shadow areas, this is a darker green. I'm going to start adding in some additional hue into those shadows, giving it maybe a little bit of a richer shadow tone with this green here. I'm not coloring in the whole thing. I'm just kind of darkening in my shadow areas a little bit more on the horizon too, just so you can see the, you know, that little ridge, grassy ridge in the background. Just to separate it from the sky a little bit more. And this is a snowy design down here, but if you just, you know, if you change it to, you know, you can change it to grass very easily just by coloring it green or whatever, instead of just leaving it bare or doing something with like a blue to represent, I don't know, just the shadows and shade areas of the, you know, within the snow. Or perhaps there's still a little bit of snow on the ground. Okay, here's a lighter green. Again, kind of hitting it in the darker areas, not to make the darker areas lighter, because that's not what this is going to do. It'll just kind of make it a little bit richer. Richer with kind of multiple temperatures of this of green. All right, so just a little bit of a hint of green throughout. I mean, it's you know, it's there, but it's not very bright. It just kind of glows a little bit, I think. All right, now I am going to add in a little bit of highlights with my paint pen because it's easier to add this onto this paper before I use a pastel pencil. The pastel pencil is kind of, you know, it's light and chalky, so I want to add in some little bit of highlighting touches with my, again, my acrylic paint pen here. And I'm doing this on the opposite side of the tree from the shadow side. I see this right here where this is a little bit lighter on the trunk right here and darker down here, so I'm adding some of this on the light side of the tree, but also in the lighter areas of the tree. If you added shadow on the left-hand side, then I probably wouldn't add too much highlighting with there, because you're saying that, you know, the absence of a shadow, or the presence of a shadow, there's just light, less light hitting there. So I'm just going for these little touches here. Nothing too extreme. Actually, as I add this in there, it kind of starts disappearing. Maybe I need to shake this up a little bit more. It's blending in with it, which is kind of good, but, you know, if you want it to stand out a little bit more, then shake it up and get that paint mixed up in there. Okay, let's bring on the light. White pastel pencil. We'll start doing it on the birch trees first. We'll do it kind of lightly at first, just to address the tree trunks in a very light way. And then I'll add more accordingly. It's like, okay, let's tweak that and kind of bring that one out a little bit more. Or we'll see if I get it in the, I don't know, the first pass here. If kind of a lighter application looks good. Now, if you add too much of this, you can always just wipe it off. It'll come right off. It only adheres after you spray seal it. Okay, so the lighter areas on the lighter side of the tray. So we shaded the opposite side of the trunks, so again, we're highlighting the other side when it comes to the other side of the sun in this case. So yeah, I'm not doing the whole side, I'm kind of hitting it. You know, I wouldn't say I'm oscillating my application of it, but I'm doing it a little bit more varied, okay? So it just looks like the light is hitting it differently. I don't want to look like a kind of a super evenly illuminated like PVC pipe or something like that. There's shadows in here being cast by the leaves and everything like that. So the trunks are just, they're textured differently. Kind of running some of this with the contours of the trunk like this now. You go up like this and you can go kind of, it's not cross-hatching, but okay, so we have that in the trees. Trees are looking okay, just as is, maybe. And then what we'll do is we'll illuminate some of these lighter areas down here. So I darkened some of the shadows, so I'm going in maybe a little bit too much. I'll spread it around a little bit. And illuminating the lighter areas. And there's lighter areas of the design, like right next to the water. And again, just put a little light touch down. And take a look back, hold the card up at distance, see how this is affecting the scene that you're doing. Okay. And see, I've left some lighter areas of the forest floor, so I can put some of this lighting into those areas as well. It could be very subtle, just with a couple little touches in here too. Or you can go for a little bit of a thicker coating. When finished, and when you get what you want, you'll spray, use a spray fixative over this, over the surface. Okay, and our little figure here, she deserves a little bit of lighting, or a lot of lighting, because she is the star of the scene. I got a lot of texturing in her, so I'm just going to try to put some of these highlights over the top of it. right, I think we have our illumination in here. Let's go for a little bit lighter right here in the bottom center of the scene, just to kind of create the center is a little bit more of a focal, area. Have some of that light kind of coming through here stronger. The pastel pencil feels just like working in pastels, but just with a stronger, or a pencil form. Okay, I think I need to spray seal this and spray fix it, and then we'll come back in here and we'll add in a few little extra highlights and things like that, textures, which I can't add right now because it's like powder on here, so I need to kind of flatten that out and affix it to the surface more. Let's see. How's that look with the lighting? Doing my little tweaks. I guess I'm going to spray fix this. I don't want to have to spray fix it multiple times, so let me get this lighting down the way that I want it a little bit more. So I'm strengthening the lighting in some areas of the trunks, just to vary it a little bit more and make it a little bit lighter. All right, I think that should do it. All right, spray fixing. Okay. I don't know if you can tell the difference between pre-spraying and post-spraying here. The page might have gotten, some of the things might have gotten a little bit darker with the sealant. Although spray fixative is a very light sealant, but it does alter it a little bit. Okay, so everything that we've done here as far as coloring goes with the colored pencils, and especially the pastel pencils, those are very soft types of embellishments, okay? Now, I did use a little bit of the paint pen on there, but what we're going to do is we're going to add in more paint pen. Maybe I'll switch over to the white from the beige like that, okay? And let's put in some more crisp styles of embellishment, highlighting, lighting, etc. And hopefully that will provide a really nice balance. Now this is a really light white right here in comparison. Okay, you can really see it on there. It'll kind of stand out a little bit, so don't put it everywhere. Just kind of put it in a few select spots initially. Put it in a few select spots to kind of get the gist of how whatever kind of technique you're applying affects the overall look of the piece, okay? So you can see that right there on those trees. It really, it makes those trees stand out quite a bit more. And it stands out a lot, so we need to balance off the other things that are, kind of equally lit. And do those the same way, especially on her dress right here. Putting a few little line work, and I use both the line and the dot to kind of bring out those little highlights like that. But then you see these little areas right down here in the landscape, these little sloped areas that are lighter, or like that right there. And then you start bringing it into those areas as well. I'm kind of trying to use a real light touch, okay? It's like I'm just kind of touching the paper, and I'm making this little mark. I'm not doing these real kind of contoury styles of, real heavy marks with my marker here. And this is where I'm just kind of adding in some little sparkly touches like that too. Some of these things represent kind of lighting, and some of them will represent some sort of object. Okay, so I'll put some maybe some flowers into the meadow or the forest floor. And I'll just kind of cluster them a little bit like this, okay? Little clusters of these dots. Gonna be like a springtime or something like that. Kind of starts to waken up everything. It's a way to kind of add lighting into areas that are, maybe otherwise kind of not very interesting from a tonal standpoint. So what we're doing is we're adding in a lot of contrast, but it's also texture into these areas like this. So this area down here just kind of was brought to life a little bit. Let's try something here. This is a large enough scene. I'm gonna dip into some other paint pen colors. Let's go with this light green. And it's basically the same green as this one right here. I mean, it's real similar. So we've colored in this green with the colored pencil, but then we're texturing with the same color. So it kind of blends in. It harmonizes really well. I mean, you can do it over your applications of that color. Do it right over it, so it just, I don't know, makes it a little bit of a richer type of color statement, in that it has been applied very softly with the colored pencil, but then you have these crisp little elements of it in the acrylic paint pen. It just, it just blends in really well because there's the same color already laid down, so it makes it really easy to harmonize. And see, I can add this in the shadows and it doesn't really stand out quite as much because it's a darker color than white. So you can get that kind of more of a subtle texturing in a color. All right. And then let's do some little glowing little orbs down here, just for a little bit of a tinge of I don't know, whimsy, magic. So I'm doing these slightly larger little dots. All right. White paint pen, Q-tip, or a cotton swab. And some white ink. This pad is pretty dry, remember. Okay. So I'm going to fray this a little bit and loosen it up a little bit so I get a nice soft application here. Looks like I had some black on that side. Let me use the opposite side here. I'm dabbing it down here just to make sure that I remove some of that ink. I don't want it going on here too thick. Okay, we got a very dry pad. And just lightly dab over, you know, some of these little dots in here. And it'll become like a glowing little dot. It's a soft light that we're kind of introducing into the scene. And it's just a different texture. So it makes for a nice textural addition, and by doing so, it expands your textural range of your piece. And plus, I mean, these things are just fun. It looks kind of a little bit more three-dimensional in here. You have these kind of, you know, little hovering, glowing orbs of light. And you really don't need to spray seal after this because everything, you know, most of the stuff's already kind of adhered, and this pigment ink is just somewhat of a light application. It'll affix down there just fine. All right, let's see what we have here. There's our little dancer amongst the birch, like that. And let's see. Let's add on a few little tweaks here. So the sun is right here. I'm going to kind of add a few little kind of sparkly touches to some of these leaves, kind of reiterating what's going on in the tree trunk. So I'm putting the little highlights on the sides of some of these leaves facing the light source. So now what we're doing is we're kind of introducing, or not kind of, we are introducing the same texture that's going on down here in this upper area. I won't do too many. Sometimes I go overboard because it's fun to do, and I don't know, everyone should go overboard with a lot of their applications, but I don't want to spend too much more time on this piece. But you can see those little highlights up there in those leaves up top. And there we have it. Let's see, where are we on time here? About an hour. It's not too bad for a full-size piece, I think. You know, with a decent amount of techniques in there. But pretty easy to do. So would a quarter-page one take, you know, 15 minutes? I don't know about that, maybe 20 or something like that, 25 minutes, but I don't know, I think it's a pretty good look. Yeah, and I'm looking at these, you know, this canopy of leaves up here that I tried on this one on top of the wood grain paper. I think it worked out pretty good having those multiple tones in there. I think it reads pretty well, and I think it blends in pretty good. And I like the, you know, the smaller birch trees kind of in the distance as well against the ArtFoamy larger ones up and closer to the foreground. So, yeah. All right, so thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like these videos, hope you hit the like button and consider subscribing. Hope to see you on the next video.